but Brian mentioned, listening to our people in our office and understanding, and outside our office into the field, listening to them and saying, these are the things that we need to be successful. These are the things that we need to do to bring people out, bring people on, and having that work environment where people want to be a part of what we're doing. You know what I mean? And it not just be about the work, but it be about the diversity, about the teaching that we provide. One of the other things that we do to bring people on is we have a 501c Horace Academy, which teaches smaller companies and also teaches at-risk kids and kids that just want to get into construction. So we get involved with those different things to make sure that we're keeping up with the strategy of how to retain, how to be productive, and how to teach the people that maybe other people are not giving thought to.
Are those the things your father thought about when he was teaching you the industry?
So my father is absolutely the most phenomenal person there is, in my opinion. He taught me how to work. And so what we want to do with our team is teach them how to work and think. And so if you do that, and if you give them the opportunity to do their thinking and their people want to be a part of that. We don't micromanage anyone. We give them that opportunity. So my father taught me how to work and how to think. Those were the things that he put into me.
Chief, you're also in an industry where technology has changed. How has it changed what you're doing, and what happens when you get that person recruited? How do you get them up to speed, and how do you keep them on top of the game?
So I'm gonna come back to that question, but I have to give kudos to, what's your name again? Jonathan, okay. And the reason I was up here smiling, because when he mentioned that strategy team of having another eyes on it, we've never had a female fire chief. I'm the first for the city. But, thank you. But the reason I bring that up, because I had one of my chief come in my office the other day, and he says, thank you, chief. So I looked at him like, okay, so what? He says, no, thank you. He says, because what you have done to change as a male, he would have never done that. He didn't understand why I did what I did, but now he see the big picture, and it has made a lot of changes. So with that, having other eyes to come in, because we think we kind of get tunnel vision in one way, and to have these individuals to come in and show him a different path to allow him to keep 60% of his workforce for over 20 years, So with that being in the fire service, of me coming in, and of course making some, I don't want to use the word changes, but making some adjustments, because I see things different from a female point of view, because I have 24 years with the city, but I have 27 years in the fire service. So how I see things is totally different than what a male see, but we're still trying to get that common goal, And so now we talk about employees. Our process for hiring individuals used to take about 8 months, which is crazy. So when I got in this position, one of my chief tells me, we were getting ready to recruit, getting ready to hire, and he says, well, this is how we're going to do it, and da-da-da, because we just kept doing the same thing. I says, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do it this way. He said, it's not going to work. I said, don't tell me it ain't going to work. We're going to try this. So the first time from the time that we closed the application process, did the interviews with a panel, then I did my final interview, to the day they walked through Tampa Fire, was reduced down to 3 months.
Wow.
So he tells me, well, we can't do that. And so now when we get ready to hire, we're in the process of hiring again. He says, nope, you done proved to me we can do it. So it takes other eyes to try to get the system going. And I'm just one of those people, I like to take a look at the system, see how I can make changes to it, adjust to it. So when we talk about those individuals coming through the door, and how do I keep them? Well, a lot of times the benefits keep them. I'm one of those people, when I say diversity, I don't talk about gender, race. I'm talking about education, training, you know, because if I just limit myself or limit you to have this sort of training, all the different specialties, and don't give you the opportunity, now I limit myself. So that's something the fire service, when I say the fire service, I'm gonna talk about Tampa, some of the things we haven't done, because we have certain people that have all of this training, but when they retire, now all of that wealth of knowledge is gone. So we have to look into how can we do some diversity when it comes to training and keeping those individuals. So I pulled the youth up and I mix it with middle age, and as far as the education, it's like a variety, because you can teach me something, you can teach me something, because we're gonna make a team. So I have to get that diversity going. And so with the fire department, I really don't have a problem with retaining individuals. Now, this year, we did have 3 people to leave, but they had other avenues that they wanted to take, but it was, like one wanted to be a CRNA, you know, but that's fine, you know. But usually, individuals do not leave the fire department. They stay for their 20 years. You know, the benefits are good. Being a public servant is just great. So we don't have the problem. But we are in a position of, like everyone else is, for us trying to recruit individuals, because everybody's hiring firefighters.
Oh, yes.
You know, everybody is hiring individuals.
Everybody's
Yeah.
after them.
So we've been going out to different schools, military, you know, people get out of the military, because we look at what the job is, and basically it's a physical, and we try to recruit those individuals. And what I have started doing, if you're 18 or older, and if I see someone or someone tells me that, hey, you know, I got this person, but they're really not sure, I tell them, well, come and ride with me. Because up until you can come out there and actually see what we do, you really might not know, because I'm gonna tell you, 27 years ago, actually probably longer than that, when I first got introduced to the fire service, my neighbor said, Barbara, you ought to get into the fire service. I said, it's too hot in Tampa to be putting out fires. You know, I'm serious. I never knew exactly what the fire service was about. So once again, it's getting that awareness out there, getting that knowledge out there, because what attracted me when they started telling me about the hours, 1 day on, 2 days off, I'm like, oh, sign me up. Still didn't know what I was doing, you know. And so once I got involved in it and see, I'm like, oh, that's me all day, because I love helping people. I'm a public servant, you know, I'm a giver, you know. I went back to school, did my, you know, this, and those are the people that we have to attract, that want to come and help people be public servants, come out and give and support. You know, so that's the thing that my team now is going out to different schools and telling them, hey, if you're interested, because once again, I didn't know anything about the fire service, you know, but once I found out and understood the scope of it, I'm like, sign me up, you know.
Randall, what's technology done in your industry, and how has that impacted your onboarding and your continuing training with staff?
Yeah, we use Paylocity as our kind of payroll, but onboarding, training, getting, individuals set up, getting all the passwords that they need to do their jobs. We have an internal website, McKibben Home, where we keep everybody informed. But then supporting the properties, there's, the e-commerce and social media and revenue management is all very technology based. And so and then the brands are looking at ways to how can they become more technology-based to customer-facing issues. So there's a huge technology component and IT component to what we do, even though we're a person-to-person, face-to-face business. We're always going to be dependent upon technology and changes. So we have adapted. We were kind of in the mindset, or nearly 100-year-old company, but at a corporate office to say, if you're if our people in the field are required to be at the hotels, they can't work remotely. You can't clean a room remotely. We're going to be in the office. But then what we found as we were rehiring people were reluctant to come in. So we said, well, if we're rehiring is the best person in Tampa for a revenue management position that we're looking for to cover the Chicago market. And what we found is that might not be the case. They might be located in Indianapolis. And we've been able to bring on not just the best talent in Tampa, we've brought on the best talent in the nation. And through proper recruiting, through LinkedIn and other social media, and utilizing technology, we've been able to recruit and as Dr. Laney said, cast a wider net than we had previously. So that has really helped us, even though we consider ourselves a Tampa-based company, we're hiring people in other markets.
Goes back to Craig's point about now we're looking for talent around the world, and we
Yes.
can find it around the world.
I got to imagine for every industry, social media has probably risen to the top of how you attract and recruit people. Is that fair to say across industries? You can't get it done without a social media presence?
Who's on Twitter?
Technically, but I don't think I've ever been on.
I know my staff
Okay.
you'll see stuff from me
Yeah.
on Twitter. They don't allow me to touch it. They said, no, we don't want you. I wanted to come back and ask each one of you, Chris's numbers on we're seeing less people. We've all been in our industries, I can see, for more than 20 minutes or a year. Does it change how you manage? Does it change how you teach people in your industry to manage? Bill?
Yes. I mean, things have changed, but things are still the same. You know, we've talked a lot about technology and wages. People leave people too.
Yeah.
And, you know, we forget about that. Being a manager is tough, and it's maybe even harder now. So companies have to invest in their managers, their leadership, because those skills, you know, that's just as important. You spend so much time and energy and money getting people in the door, and then if they don't have that connection, onboarding I talked about, but you got to keep them connected throughout, and that's the people leaving people piece of it. And now what we figured out is how you use technology in a way that maybe you didn't use it before. I've had a camera on my laptop for I don't know how many years. Prior to March of 2020, you know how many times I used it? None. I never used the thing. And now I can't imagine a day where I don't use the camera on my laptop. And so, but that's also what, you know, that things have evolved, and how you connect with people as a manager, as a leader, is different today, because it might not be face-to-face. That's still very powerful, and that will never be replaced necessarily, but there is an art to being able to connect with people virtually. And those that can do it in person, those that can do it virtually, those that can do it via text or email, that's a gift. And so we can't lose sight. We have to continue to reinvest in our managers and training and our managers and leaders, because that's that gap in between. I don't want people leaving because of the people. I want them to leave because there's another opportunity they have. There's something else, they have passion they want to go follow, not because they lost connection with their manager.
Roy, you're an industry that kind of, I think about traditional. My uncle was a steel worker, ended up being in management because he was good at what he did and got promoted, but I wouldn't exactly call him warm and fuzzy. Have you had to change how you manage? Have you had to change how your people manage the workforce?
Somewhat, but probably not as much as you would think. I mean, even with the technology and the machine tools becoming more and more productive and all the time, it's still basic cutting metal. It's because we're machining, we're making parts out of blocks of metal and that sort of thing. So a lot of the principles and everything are the same. We've done a lot of work on training and upskilling people, bringing them along. We actually have had, you know, in the old days you would take your best machinist and here's the new guy, teach him, but nobody ever taught that guy how to teach.
How to teach.
So we've had 30 people plus go through workshops on train the trainer type thing. So they're certified, NIM certified on-the-job trainers, and that's helped a lot in bringing along the new people and the young people on that. And we just, we do a lot of recruiting through schools, and we did school tours, and we just did a couple in October and hired 3 high school students out of Lato High School. So we have a full apprenticeship program. So I've got, these kids are working weekends because they're going to school. But we've got 2 of our recent apprentice graduates that are teaching one each, and then we have a quality engineer trainee that is teaching the third one.
Wow. Robbie, you come from an industry that's been traditionally pretty hierarchical. Have you seen that start to change, and have you had to put more focus on getting the staff to understand retention is critical?
Absolutely, and again, I think one of the good things of the pandemic, if any, is the way in which it's focused and sharpened our focus on that area. So, you know, We say three things about the healthcare industry. Number one, we're in the people business. Number two, our people are our greatest asset. And three, our patient experience will never exceed our employee engagement. And because of that, and you look at employee engagements, like everybody up and down this panel here, you know that that's really driven by the leaders. And so I love what Brian said about culture. I love the way Bill talked about getting that story out there and telling it. And that's really what we've done in a lot of ways. And we've focused our teams through this. And I'm really proud of our teams through the pandemic. Even we're in the middle of another uptick here, but certainly during the fall, one of the things that we said previous with 3 other surges before that, and we found that everybody got so focused on just managing through it that our broadness, our agenda, we kind of shed other things on it. So we wanted to manage through all these patients with COVID, but we have other agendas. We have our employee engagement agenda. We have our physician satisfaction agenda. We have our hospital-acquired infection, our safety agendas, and we said, you know, this next go-around, we're going to really focus on our leaders, and we're going to make sure that day to day we're supporting them with structure and things that they can do to really get out there and touch their employees. And so it started with really focusing on, we have a common purpose in our team here, and we were able to say, let's stress purpose over task. So if someone has a task to do, but their purpose is to, in our case, our common purpose is we make a difference by providing compassionate care that those we're privileged to serve. So if you can make a difference versus your task, go make a difference day to day. So purpose over task. The other thing, and it's been said down this panel, really being more intentional. We struck real structure around diversity, equity, and inclusion in healthcare. We've got leadership that we meet monthly on that to ensure that we're moving that agenda forward in the ways that we can. We've changed, and I love what Chief said, we tore up our paradigm on recruitment, and we said we changed it now. One day, come in and you'll get an offer. So another key thing that we've done in that. And then the last thing, which I heard also around the question, we started and maintained our Nurse Leader University, which is our leadership training, and we improved our employee engagement through the pandemic, statistically over 4 points. We improved our physician satisfaction, we improved our physician satisfaction and patient satisfaction in spite of the other 3 waves. Most of that fell apart. So really finally figured it out. We needed, I guess, 4 surges to get it right. I don't know what this 5th one will teach us, but the 4 that we did. And so I think that it really changed our ability to look at how we engage our leaders ultimately, and then push this idea of employee engagement, which is really the heart and soul of what we do day to day.
Craig, I know for economic development, you meet with companies that are here that might be in trouble. How critical is that retention message that you talk to employers about? Do you find that to be problematic? I think Brian pointed out we've all had to get better at our messaging. Yep. Do you see that as a critical coaching part of what you do?
It's a key piece for us because we're hired guns. We're hired to say good things about Tampa and what it's like to grow your business here. So when we're able to bring in other business leaders that can speak about, how they retain people, how hard it is to get people, and just be honest about it, and how their employees enjoy living here. When they hear that message from our own business community, it weighs a lot stronger than them hearing it from us. So part of our messaging with our businesses is allowing them and encouraging them to talk to other business leaders in the community about what it's like to do business here, what it's like to have employees here, how hard it is or not hard it is to recruit for certain positions. And, everything from the quality of life to, the cost of living, all of that is important messages for our prospective companies to hear about.
I want to finish up with a question. One of the things that we think about when we think about recruiting is we think about PK through 12. And yet when we looked at Chris's numbers, the next time we have any sort of balance between out of the labor force and into the labor force, those folks are in 3rd grade. So 80% of that labor force we need at least the next decade is already here. Lots of people here for education, lots of people here for community-based organizations. I'm going to start with Bill and ask each of you, what do you need them to do to get people ready for you to even give that pitch to?
Yeah, I think it's making that connection with somebody at the organization to understand what they need today and what they need 12 months from now, what they need 24 months from now. And John and I have had this conversation. A big piece of it is I've got to tell the story of what I'm going to need, not just today, but what am I going to need 12 months, 24 months from now, so we can start putting those connections in place. And again, it's still a connection business. And if you can meet with the HR folks and of the large employers and get them connected with the organization so you understand what their needs are and how those needs are evolving, that's where you go.
You don't have to answer publicly, but does he listen?
So far.
I didn't want to put you on the spot, but okay, that's good to know, though. Randall, what do you need? I guess the prep folks. If we think about the kitchen, this is the prep workers in terms of education and community organizations.
Yeah.
What do you want them to understand about what you need and where you are?
A lot of it is education and exposure to our industry is not just a part-time job or I'm going to do this until I get my next step, is that you can be in an entry-level position in hospitality and grow in that career, and it could be a lifetime career. I started 30 years ago with McKibben as a part-time houseman at a Days Inn in Athens, Georgia. So it's I'm living testament that I was making $4.50 an hour as, again, a part-time job. So and just was able to take advantage of our company growth and grow a career. So that's my biggest passion right now. Is we've just announced a partnership with USF to have students who are in the hospitality school actually working in a hotel. Because it would be very difficult to have 4 years of education and then go to work in an entry-level hotel position, and you're only going to be able to get into a managerial position if you have experience. So, but it's about telling the story. Social media, getting the culture out there, connecting with our community. We're even talking to. We're putting a hub at Sly Middle Magnet Thaddeus Bullard School to expose middle school children. We work with Ryan Neese on the high school leadership level to say hospitality is just not a part-time, paycheck, get a paycheck and move on job. You can start a career. So a big part of it's our responsibility and Ben's responsibility for telling that story.
What attracted you to the industry? What kept you in the industry?
We've always felt that the number one reason anybody leaves their job is they haven't had they don't like their boss. And I've worked for the same gentleman for the last 27 years. So, and then there's been growth. So there's always growth on the horizon for us, and we're still in that pattern. So there's still growth on the horizon. So that's what's kept me. But honestly, to answer your question, I was probably about 2 weeks. I had $96 in my bank account and 2 weeks of food and grocery money, or I was going to have to go back home to live with my parents or continue on my education at the University of Georgia. So any Bulldog fans in the house tonight? We've got a big game against Alabama, in case you didn't know. So yeah, I'm anxious about that. So we got one Bulldog fan, so thank you. But I needed the paycheck, but I soon learned that the benefits and the 401k and scholarship program, and it was more than I had bargained for. So that's getting a foot in the door in our industry is huge.
Brian, what do you need them to understand, and what do they need to have people ready for?
I think a large part of it is on us, and I share this with you from this perspective. I read a book last year. One of the books I read last year was Hit Refresh by the Microsoft CEO. And he talks about the point when he realized that Microsoft, just last couple of years, was so much more than a software integration company. That it's really a company that changes lives and lifestyles. So as he stepped back and started to articulate better moving Microsoft forward, I thought about it from my context of being a retired Army officer, and people say, what is the Army? Well, the Army is 116, 125, any given day, different jobs. And within each one of those are different jobs. So what is Vistra Communications? Vistra Communications is a little small, complex organization, but we do so many different things. And I try to empower our leaders to articulate what we do, how we do it, why we do it, for the benefit of clients, et cetera. And through that, that's where you can hit those different attractive to younger, attractive to mid-career switches, attractive to people at various levels. So those are things I continue to work on.
Chief, what do you need people to be ready for? What kind of skills do they need and be ready for?
Well, one of the biggest thing I think as I was writing something as far as work ethics, we need people to understand, regardless of what job you have, we know money pays the bill. We know everybody want to run behind money, but sometimes money doesn't make you happy, and I just feel like when I talk to a lot of the youth, I always tell them, follow your dreams, it's okay, but you got to be happy. When I went through the fire service, one of the instructors say someone got to flip the burgers. And I didn't understand what he meant about that, but he says firefighting is not made for everybody. So a lot of times we get into careers or do things that we're not happy, whether it's because of finance or, money, but we should be happy with whatever we decide to do, whatever career. So as far as being a firefighter, one of the things I looked at is a lot of characteristics for being a firefighter, and I guess one of the biggest things is like work ethics and physical, but I think also we need to have exposure, and awareness, because like I said, I never knew what the fire service was about, and once I got in, I loved it, to make it to the top, but it was just, just getting out there and being aware of what the fire service is about, or public service.
Jonathan, what do people need to understand about your industry and get people ready for?
First thing is I'd like to commend the School District of Hillsborough County for starting to look at our industry and starting to expose our industry to use, because exposure is the big thing of what they can do. Because they're doing that now, they had a panel on Friday that's going to meet monthly to answer just those questions. Hey, which classes do we need to put in? What should be the, how should we instruct these people in HVAC, welding, carpentry, drafting, architectural, things that were not thought about in the K through 12 area previously are now being thought of. The people that got in our industry basically were either kids of construction workers or they were like the gentleman down there. They needed to get something, so they start, mixing mud and doing all the other stuff. But now when you start teaching and exposing the K through 12 folks of what they can do and what it takes and the money that can be made, and then it has to be a love for construction. But if they're not exposed to it, they don't even know if they have the love for it or not. So those types of things, I'm just glad that now that either the HCCs and the K through 12s are looking at or giving the exposure to the construction industry. The other thing that I want to make mention of is the fact that when you talked about leaders and stuff, we have those persons that are working with us now that were a part of the Second Chance program. We have them in a managerial position to help seek out other ones that are second chance and give us the real information if these people should be working with us or not. They can look at and talk to and be with and be in a leader position and understand what we need to do to help and who is really viable solutions for.
Roy, what do you need them to have people ready for?
Well, I'll echo what was just said with the construction part. Is the exposure is one of the main things. Get away from the mindset of college only is the answer to everything. Get your guidance counselors and teachers out in the field and go to businesses and see what it's really like, so that you can guide your students when you recognize somebody that wants to work with their hands and maybe they're not the book learner type, then maybe construction or manufacturing is the place to go. So, for the programs that have the industry advisory councils, really lean on those people, work with them so that you learn what really is needed and the great careers that are there.
I mean, what do they need to have people ready for? Students or adults thinking about another option?
I think a lot has been said in the panel, not too surprising. I think the first thing is, as Randall mentioned, is this idea that we've got to have broad exposure. I think interesting fact is that we have around 23,000 employees that work in our hospital, in our hospital system in this area for me, and about 10,000, maybe 11,000 are in the clinical side. So there are a lot of other jobs that are out there, all the way from marketing to hospitality to communications, and then of course traditional administration, that this idea, and well said about getting the guidance counselors out there, there is a broad net, and the other part is you don't need college education to get entry, but as I said, as Randall said, this idea of a career ladder, can you spend your time there? And as the chief said, the second thing I would say when we look for people, what are we looking for? It's three things. One, it is about hard work, because that really is what goes on at all levels, from physical to mental, and it is tough. Second is commitment to continue to stay there, grow and develop, and live your passion out by making a difference. And the third is attention to detail, because no matter what aspect of healthcare that you participate in, consider it that lives are at stake and the details matter.
Craig, you're on the panel, so I can't ask you and John, so I'll just ask you. Lots been said about how people need to be ready for this. What do you need the business community in Tampa to do with you to have that workforce ready?
I think you've heard a lot about bringing more awareness to the career opportunities, exposing them at earlier grade levels, instead of just waiting until, high school to say, these are some career opportunities. People are reaching down in middle schools, helping them understand what a career would look like in certain areas, whether it's construction or manufacturing or healthcare or hospitality. It's going to take that partnership with educational institutions like HCC and Hillsborough school districts. It's going to take those types of things to be able to get that awareness at the appropriate levels. Because one of the key things that I've heard employers needing are, aside from the skills, is just these traits of critical thinking and things like that, to be able to problem solve without, direct supervision. And so you're not going to get that unless it starts, being made aware early on in their educational
So
experience.
partnership has to move from it's
Partnership.
nice to have to you gotta have.
Yeah.
It's gotta be a part of it.
Yeah, so, that's what we're here to do. And if you guys have, anybody who's talked to me, if you heard me say, it has to start before high school. If we're, particularly when you look at some of the things that Chris said in regards to, there's less young people now than there were 10 years ago, even in Tampa. So how are we we need to be able to give you the opportunity to get these folks a look at your industry 6th, 7th, 8th grade, so they can make an informed choice when they get into high school, what track they're going to take and where it's going to take them. Because I think good Lord, if I would have known what a journeyman electrician makes, maybe I wouldn't have got a six-figure debt. But it's really important that we do that. And I think as a country, we don't do a fantastic job of that. I got to go over and hang out in Zurich for a couple months and see how they do their vet system. 5th grade, these kids are learning about every industry. And what's critically important is the employers are partners, not just because they pay taxes, but because they want to cultivate their talent. And we'll do our, we are going to do our level best to do our part. We want to work with you to make sure that we provide that talent for you, because Craig, I'm sure you know this now. It's the #1 economic development issue of our time.
Right.
Incentives don't really, incentives do matter, but they matter much less than talent now. So,
Agreed.
I've kept you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so I traveled down from Washington DC because events like this, listening to you, are important to me as I go back to try and promote what we need to do with education and workforce development. So, John, I want to thank you. I want to thank CareerSource Tampa and Bay for the opportunity. I want to thank you guys for allowing me for you all for allowing me to hang out this morning. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for your time, everybody. We appreciate it.
thank you all so much for that amazing, invigorating discussion. I learned so much. I'm sure